mean, they make good pets if you treat them really, really, really well, and you train them really well.
Which no one in the world seems to know.
But most people don't. But I mean, there are people I met who've got them, and they seem very happy and relaxed. They'll travel around in your pocket and yeah, bring them out. They stroke you, because when they're relaxed, you can stroke a hedgehog. This is a relaxed hedgehog, you can stroke it. But when it gets prickly, but the first thing a hedgehog does when it gets angry or frightened or concerned is it frowns. You frown, every frown. That muscle, which does that for you, on a hedgehog goes all the way down from here, down to its bottom, and it brings all the spines up. So that's when the first thing is frown. But if they're relaxed, all spines go in the same direction. But there are two main reasons. One is because people are people, and therefore they are numpties. And so what you will do is they will get bored with their pet hedgehog, and they will go, you know what, we've got hedgehogs in the wild. That'll be fine, go to jettison it. The hedgehog will then either die, or it will be found by somebody who will recognise it as not being a real hedgehog. This is a worm. If you're a hedgehog, this would be a very tasty treat. Because what is it that hedgehogs eat most of?
Snails and worms.
Thank you, well done. Their principal diet is worms. They will eat slugs and snails, but not quite as much as people like to think they do. But we don't really spoil the secret of that because we like people to think that they're the best thing to have in your garden. But the thing is, you've only seen one. You've only seen one hedgehog. Apart from having this wasted life not spent out, you need a hammock. That's actually the main thing. You need a hammock in the garden and a small table beside the hammock and a duvet. And you wrap yourself up in the duvet, lying in the hammock, and on the table you have a bottle of gin and a bottle of tonic and a glass. You have been seeing fewer hedgehogs because they're up here around. We've just done a piece of research which we published last year, the state of British hedgehogs. It was great. We had somebody died and gave us lots of money, so he invested in research. And we're currently funding a PhD looking at macroinvertebrate food of field margins. And we suspect it's going to reveal that in the field margins of the fields, which are pasture and sort of monocultures of perennial rye, and in the field margins of the sort of oilseed rape crops, there's going to be very, very little food. And in rough pasture, we're going to find, and hay meadows will find lots more food. But this is what we're suspecting. Focus on your friends. They have an asymmetric intragilled predatory relationship. Your turn. Asymmetric intragilled predatory relationship. That's the hedgehog and the badger. Which is why I was very tempted at the idea of getting a badger tattooed on my right leg, because then I could safely say, with a straight face, somehow channeling Frankie Howard and good ecological stuff at the same time, that I'm the only person in the country with an asymmetric intragilled predatory relationship between them. What that means is the asymmetric integral predatory relationship, they feed in the same guild. They eat the same food, macroinvertebrates, say worms, snails, and puppy dog snails. Well, not puppy dog snails, and so they eat the same food. But they're competitors for the same food resource. Now, badgers will eat the equivalent of 6 or 7 hedgehogs. So as many worms as 6 or 7 hedgehogs in your life. So that they outcompete the hedgehogs. But when the macroinvertebrate food of the field margins, where both the animals tend to exist, is denuded, then the relationship shifts. It shifts from being a competitive one to being a predatory one. Now, as much as I love the idea of a small band of ravenous hedgehogs chasing after and bringing down a badger, and disemboweling it, it's a bit like the wild hunting dogs of the Serengeti bringing down a wildebeest. It's not that way around. And unfortunately, the badger's claws are long from hedgehog spines. So when the hedgehog, could you pretend to be a hedgehog rolled up in a ball? Thank you. So this is good. Covered in lots of spines, but my claws are long from her spines, and so I can roll her over, and then this gap here, I put my claws in, open her up, and then start eating. Right here. So this is the problem: is that so badgers will then, when the food resources are reduced in their natural habitat, badgers will become predators of hedgehogs. And hedgehogs are frightened of badgers. And some amazing studies have been done. I need you to be a moving hedgehog this time. So wait. So this is a project which can only be thought up in the pub. What some people at Oxford University did, they thought, how can we check whether it's the smell of badgers which really freaks out the hedgehog? Because this is what our theory was. And so they decided to get quail's eggs, small little birds' eggs about this size, and they blew them. They got rid of all the contents inside, and then they filled some of them with distilled water, so it didn't smell of anything. Some of them with distilled water mixed up with rabbit droppings, and some of them with distilled water mixed up with badger droppings. And then, out at night, they'd see a hedgehog coming, so give me a hedgehog, please. they would then throw one of these eggs. Hey, you've had childcare. They would throw one of these eggs so it landed splat in front of the hedgehog, and then they would monitor the behaviour of the hedgehog. Now, when it was distilled water, the hedgehog carried on regardless. When it was distilled water mixed up with herbivore droppings, the hedgehog continued on regardless. When it was distilled water mixed with badger poo, the hedgehog turned around and went away.
What if it just stayed?
This is the thing. They were checking with other feces. So
Did they use other misspelled food?
I think they did actually take it on further, and they used lions and all sorts.
Okay.
But the point being is that the badgers are affecting the hedgehog's ability to survive, not just by competing for the food resources, not just by eating them, but they're also fragmenting the habitat. They're splitting the landscape up, because hedgehogs will move. Why do you think they're called hedgehogs? Because they hog the hedges, they move down the hedges. So what they have is, this problem is that the landscape gets split. And so you end up with little pockets of hedgehogs, little pockets where they can exist. And then if they spread out, they go into the fields, there's no food, so they go along the hedge rows. And the hedge rows they're looking for food. There's less food because the whole way of farming has removed the macroinvertebrate food from the hedges, and the hedges haven't been managed properly so that they are thinner, so there's less places to hide. And then there are more badgers, and the badgers then, if the badgers have been pooping in the middle of the hedgehogs will turn around and come back again. So this means you have a pocket of hedgehogs here, and a pocket of hedgehogs here, and a pocket of hedgehogs here. And then if something happens in one of these pockets of hedgehogs, you lose a breeding female one year, they get run over or something, then suddenly, this is actually getting quite impressive, you end up losing your breeding potential in the pocket. You get little piecemeal extinctions of hedgehogs around the country. Now this is the theory that we have for the demise of the hedgehogs, and it's being repeated in our gardens as well. Because, I mean, I do a whole bunch of talks about hedgehogs, and I have people saying, I've got the perfect hedgehog-friendly garden. I've got a compost heap. Compost heaps are great because they generate worms, they generate hedgehog food. They're shelter for hedgehogs. And so we're doing all right. And they're great for food, they're great for shelter, they collect moisture. And they've got loads of bushes at the back of the garden. They leave a patch of garden totally wild. They've got brambles, they've got a bit of nettles, and they've got leaf litter collected around the place. And they've got a cover over their pond, or they've built a ramp in their pond so the hedgehogs can escape, because hedgehogs can swim, but not forever, so if they can't get out, they'll drown. And they always lift the netting surrounding their fruit bushes so it's this far off the ground, so the hedgehogs can get in and out without getting caught up, because the big problem hedgehogs have is they get caught in netting, and what does the hedgehog do when it's frightened? It rolls up in a ball, and that means that all the spines get more tangled up with the netting, and then they get frightened, so they sort of tighten up.